a lot of people. This legislation has started a lot of debate. Why do you think this is so important?
Well, I think, we just are hopefully coming out of a pandemic that's frankly put a lot of us in uh, a new work environment. A lot of people have been working from home. It's revolutionized uh, the way people work, and people are used to a flexibility that they would not have dreamed possible before the pandemic. And as we come out of it, people don't want to go back to the old way of doing things, which was really all not that great, but really are interested in creating something new. And so I think there's a big openness to the idea of continuing the flexibility that many workers had when they discovered working from home.
So how much of this has to do with flexibility and how much of this has to do with trying to get people to make livable wages for fewer hours or get them paid more money for the hours they're already working?
Well, the conversations that are happening, I think most in earnest about the 4-day work week are actually happening in the non-hourly worker environment, the so-called exempt workers, people who don't have to, that aren't subject to the hourly, the wage and hour and wage laws. So the idea is that companies in the tech space, such as Kickstarter, for example, they're looking at a 4-day, 8-hour-a-day work week with no loss in pay. They're planning to pay these people the same, and they're piloting. They're piloting that 4-day work week, and one of the things they're going to look at is whether or not the productivity remains the same or actually increases. Believe it or not, some preliminary experiments have been done by Microsoft Japan. Some work has been done in Iceland. They didn't reduce it down to 32 hours, but they reduced it down by 2.5 hours. And actually, in Scandinavian countries, they actually work a 37.5 hour workday. So it's going to be a much different conversation for the hourly workers, which my bill covers. But it's a conversation and a debate that I want to start because I want to see us look at moving the entire country to a 32-hour work week, not just certain sectors of the workforce.
It sounds great for a lot of people, but I'm sure you've got a lot of business leaders out there saying this is going to hurt productivity. What's your response to that?
Well, that's particularly why I'm interested in the pilots that are happening in particularly the tech space, where the reduction in the work week to some of these pilots have shown that there has been no loss in productivity. And in fact, there's been some benefits that have accrued to actually employers as well. Employers have less overhead if they're open only 4 days out of the 5. They have a better, more motivated workforce. They may actually save on some medical claims because workers are less stressed and workers are better able to attend to their health. And workers find that they're paying less for childcare because it's 1 day less a week that they're paying for childcare. So there's a lot of ways in which workers and employers can benefit from a reduced work week.
Okay.
The government of Japan has actually issued guidelines encouraging employers to move toward the 4-day work week.
Are there others in Congress who are actively engaging on this with you and actively engaging on the shifting future of work in general?
Say that again. I couldn't hear your question.
Are there others in Congress who are actively engaging on this legislation with you and engaging on the changing future of work in general?
Yes, of course. I mean, I sit on the Education and Labor Committee led by Chairman Bobby Scott. We've had the whole issue of the changing nature of work, how work will change in the future, the role of AI and technology. I've got co-sponsors of the bill. Jan Schakowsky is one of the co-sponsors, as is Rashida Tlaib. And I suspect as more of my colleagues find out just what a tremendous response this bill is getting and how it's resonating with the public, we'll have more folks signing on to the bill.
Okay.
I'm just sort of just sort of gratified by the response it's getting.
So, speaking of shorter hours, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention you should actually be back in California right now, but we're pulled back to Washington so Congress can get to the most pressing issues of the day. Do you see this major infrastructure bill passing this week, and do you think it'll be packaged with the budget bill?
Well, infrastructure and reconciliation are like love and marriage, they go together. And I expect that they will be voted on together. I'm not clear whether we're going to vote on final passage. Well, what I do know is that we can't do final passage of the reconciliation bill until we mark it up. What I do believe we're going to be voting on today or tomorrow is the rule of procedure for both bills. We call it the rule. So we'll pass a rule for both of those measures, but I don't know that we'll actually act on infrastructure. I don't believe we'll act on infrastructure before finally being ready to pass the reconciliation bill. But I ultimately believe that both are going to pass, and both are fairly much intact in what we see now.